Hi, good morning. Good morning. For this particular call, we invited um, people from the intensive who might be interested in joining us today um, because we'll be introducing some new concepts, and these might be interesting for those who are ready for that. Um, so I will be saying to those from the intensive groups not to get overwhelmed by certain terminologies and systems that might be more familiar with those who have been through past intensives, past courses. We're inviting you just to familiarize yourself. But at the same time, these might be important, and you might be interested in going into these maybe sooner than later. But one value would be to get you to understand at least how the inner dance community is operating, where a lot of the systems behind the scenes are coming from, because there are always ways for collaborations to take place. Okay, so having said that, welcome to today. I feel that we are shifting into creativity. Um, this level of talk is more important for those who are holding inner dance, either that you're already doing it or you're potentially doing it. So the purpose, the value of this is to help you to organize your space, which can be quite messy at times because the space is very big. The sonic space, the energy space, the imaginative space is quite big. And something unique about the inner dance is that there are very few limits or restrictions when it comes to the space that can be held. So organization becomes like the partner of inner dance. How do you organize infinity? How can you organize the infinite possible combinations like of anything, of the things that you put in? So I'm going to share what I am doing, at least, and I'm going to be opening up some of these as possible interaction points with some of you who are already conducting systems. The good thing is at least there are many of us around the world who are using the same programs, the same applications. Maybe where things become different is a lot of us are using different types of music or different types of sound, but based on a lot of the work that we've been doing, we at least are using common platforms. So these are things that we can talk about today. I see there's so many people joining this call. Really glad. Hi, everyone. So for those who came in late, just slowly catch up. So within the intensive, where we begin is the library. Okay, what is a library? You go to a library, what do you find there? We want to invite everyone to start with what we call a librarification of elements. So I want you to think of your technologies. There is a spiritual technology and a techno philosophy, which is a way of understanding how the outside world is an extension of the internal one. So we don't have to talk about just your computers and your cell phones, your room, the people around you, your car, your bicycle, the subway train, the office. These are all extensions of you. And you have a relationship with all of these, you know? So when you decide to go into a particular task because you consider that it is important, then you need to build a relationship with external tools or containers to hold the vibrations. You have to organize that sort of space. And the digital virtual space has been coming up over the last decades that seems to be doing a lot in terms of helping us to organize like so many things. They provide instantaneous feedback, for example. Like here in Maya, cell phones are quite recent because before, maybe 4 years ago, there wasn't any cell phone signal that was here. So for me to send a message to someone in the lower part of Maya, I have to go down there and talk to them every time I need to convey something. For those who have been to Maya, you know what that means. To walk from up here to down there takes as long as 20 minutes, depending on where you're going. So something happened when cell towers came up, so that every time we have even the smallest thought, we can just get our cell phones and send a message, and then we can get a reply back. So when that happened, like a lot of work just got done, whereas in the past it just wouldn't get done. So technology is kind of interesting in that way because we can hold like all these feedback loops that weren't possible when things were more analog. So something happens when we went digital. We're entering into a very non-linear way of doing things where suddenly a lot of things can be happening globally all at the same time. Whereas in the past, to get things done, we were so much more linear. So when you organize your space, I feel these are important things to think about. That it's non-linear. There's so many non-linear things that are at work. And the more we kept developing the amount of information we're able to store and process within spaces, the more keeps getting done. And this could have negative or positive connotations. I don't want to make judgments. I'm just interested in these changes, and I watch even myself in the process and the energy itself in the process when more is being held, more is being organized, more is getting done. So in the past, my libraries were actually quite messy. Probably because my cell phones couldn't hold that much data. Right now, my iPhone has about 500 gigabytes. My old laptop used to have 200 gigabytes. Now, the current laptop I'm using has 1 terabyte, and it's more or less the space that I require to organize the many things that I do. So I cannot not be organized in that way, because the greater capacity I can hold, the greater the need to develop a system. I could decide to just simplify so that based on the system that I choose, that system is not going to change. I'm not going to expand on what I already have, because I know what works and those are good. I'm not that kind of person, and I'm not that kind of facilitator, because I believe and I've observed that we're infinite, we're deep, we're vast, we're big, and I don't think that I'm a person just like you are just a person. I believe that we are all a collective consciousness, and we have extending super rapidly, like a global central nervous system, like a global brain. I believe that the planet itself has a brain, and it's been approaching this moment for a long time now. From movement, from the dance, from the ability to absorb light, store sound, and then to conduct language, to arrive at abstract thought. Over a really long period of time, I feel that as a planet, and human beings are really just the consciousness of the planet that's able to look back at itself. We're going into a dimensionality that's organizing and integrating all of these very deep historical experiences in a way that's building up to a oneness, into a shared space. And I really do see that technology is not separate from this. Technology is really just a mirror of where we are at dimensionally in our collective consciousness, so that there used to be technologies related to cave paintings and ritual and the spoken word, reading and writing, and something seems to be bringing all of these separate tools into a lot of the things that we take for granted now, that's organizing like the space. So yeah, I do believe a spiritual technology needs to enter the field of economics, of politics, law, of medicine, school. How do we manage like all of these, right? So the library would be the initial gateway for you to organize your space. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so this is my library. I try to keep it simple because I do have so many applications inside. In my innerdance work, I have these 7 folders. Here are my DJ applications. And DJ apps are really just there to help you organize the sounds that are in there. DAW means digital audio workstation. So these are different programs that I can use to also organize my music. These are drawing elements that I need when I need to draw things in the screen. These are tools to download things from YouTube mostly to go into here, my playlist folders. And actually I was contemplating if people might be interested in just getting access to these. It wouldn't be too hard to upload them into the drive. Media, work, and yeah, just put the video related tools here. So today I want to go a little bit into this folder, specifically Ableton. Some people are using that already. I want to open this up first. So when I open a folder, what happens is there are more folders, and then I open more folders. Sorry. So yeah, I can just open a lot of these, and this is basically a picture of what my brain or my mind would look like, at least demonstrably to you. It took me like 3 years to even organize this particular system. I used to have a much older system, and it was messy. Like I didn't have proper folders and so on and so forth. Yeah, good. Let's go back. So this application, this in particular is interesting. So when I open the video downloader, and sometimes I might have like 2 of them at the same time turned on. Let's say if I go to Safari and go to YouTube and start to look for music. Okay, internet's a little bit slow. Let's wait for it anyway. It's important to demonstrate the point. It's too slow. So when I download things into the 4K, they would go here. This doesn't say anything right now because I cleaned this up yesterday, but this normally is filled with like a lot of things, because when I start to do my research on sound and I'm interested in looking for a particular sound, looking for a particular vibration, what I normally do is I tend to take in as much as I possibly can. So I would download, I would convert that into MP3, and then I would shop around for particular things that might be useful for, let's say, like a playlist project. So we did one for Lisa, for Josh last month. And then we did one for Anda, for her mom last week. And We did one for Rosa a couple of weeks ago for the prison project. So when I describe this, I guess I'm describing the downloading project that I had to be in maybe 2 years ago when I didn't have these folders set up. All right. So I do have these folders set up now, which are folders of my mind. So whenever I need like a delta track, for example, there's not even that many. At least I know where to get them. If I open any of these, it could be a digital audio workstation like Ableton or Logic, or it could be the DJ app, which is DJ Pro or Serato. Um, so it doesn't matter if I'm using it for the home studio work, which is like here, me at home. No one's here and I can take my time. Or if I need to do something live and I need to set up something very quick because there are 10 to 20 people who need to do an inner dance live. I at least know where to get the vibrations without having to think too much. And technically, these vibrations aren't mine. They're sounds that are coming from all over the world. It's just that I took my time to harvest, to collect the the different elements that have been interesting and useful for me over a long period of time. So that harvesting was very process oriented. Other people may not be able to work with my library because they did not go through my process. They don't have the same folder system, you know. So you yourself would be the one to know your organizational elements. I wouldn't know it. I wouldn't understand it. There are so many people doing this work already. So I wouldn't even know where to begin if I tried to understand yours. That's something you have to take responsibility for. So as a starting point, one thing I thought would be interesting for us to look at is sampling. And I really liked this particular subject matter because it allowed me to go back to this folder. Don't know if you can read it. It says classic inner dance music. So when I open that, here are songs that have been used over and over again around the world between the years 2009 to maybe 2015, which is to say that these are vibrations that have been known to activate inner dance, to hold inner dance again and again, and the outcomes or the results have been always quite deep. So that we can study some of these elements that could be interesting to us if we wanted to go into, okay, what makes a sound do do that? You know, what does it take to take someone into that deep space? How do you even know that a particular track is going to work? Are they all the same? Do they all work? Do some of them work better than others? So I find these to be interesting. When I accessed my original library, I just knew, you know, you really just know when you encounter a song, a track, a music, and it brings you deep, you just know, okay, this is usable. This could do something for the room. It's not something you can think about because the selection process so intuitive that it's intuitive partly because the thing doesn't hold power just on its own. The track holds power because of its relationship with other vibrations and the contexts in the room and your intention and the energy parameters people will be coming from. It's kind of a channeling experience in that way. So yeah, like so I've been interested in going back to some of these old inner dance music, but not in the same way. I don't want to go back to these songs in the way that I used to play them, which means, okay, I would come into a room, I would be holding one of these, an iPad, an iPhone, an iPod, and I would press the play button. And when I press the play button, the song would start. And some songs are, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes. Some of my songs are 20 minutes long. And people would go into this long journey that would be carried by the song, which would have relationship with other songs. I can't do that anymore. That's like old history. There are many tools and techniques that we've developed over the years that allows us to hold things in a deeper, faster, bigger way. And it's not because of the inner dance per se, it's where the global mind is already at based on its feedback systems within itself and within everyone else. So I'm interested in sampling for now to maybe study how can I take important elements within some of these tracks so that I don't need the whole thing. I realize that now. Even back then, I realized there were only certain things within these songs that I needed. So if I could just take that and expand on that and also take in a lot of the other elements that are coming from new elements that I'm not that familiar with, then I feel this could be shared. We don't have to share songs with each other. We can share samples with each other, and I think that constitutes a really big shift in the way we can hold collaborations together. So as a metaphor, let's think of language. Say when you think of a song, maybe a song could be like a sentence or a paragraph. A sample might be like a word, which would still be a combination of sounds. It's just a lot more tight, condensed, or compact. And then you would have the super basic sounds that could be available through instruments, or there are some samples that are like one-shot sounds. It could be like a clap, or it could be like a kick drum. It could be Um, so I think when we learn to produce and hold the music more intricately, we stop using just the ready songs that a lot of facilitators used to hold a long time ago, where they would just press the play button and then they would let that do its thing, and they go around the room and then they could do their thing. A lot of people who realize that, okay, we don't always have to keep holding, touching, pressing people's bodies. When we get interested in the vibration, then we start to realize, okay, I can actually take that music and split it up. I could warp it. I could distort it. I could synthesize it. So then it's only a matter of time before you get interested in how to even create some of those sounds altogether um, um, on your own, like spontaneously. Um, so working with samples has been tremendously important for music producers, musicians over a long period of time. I think it would be interesting for facilitators to look at it. Um, there's something about the Ouroboros, or what you might call the time loop, when time begins to go in a circle. So in the programs that we've been using, we've been conducting loops in innerdance for so many years now, using the DJ app. When you take a song and then you press the loop button, and then the same sound just keeps going around and around and around, like in a circle. It does something to the participants, where what used to be linear time starts to enter into a loop, which brings them more into space. There, there's something to that, like where each point in thought or language or the mind, each part of the whole, each point in the map basically holds infinity. And when we created language, when we created thought, what we learned to do is to displace the point so that it would unravel in a series of points called time. So when we are moving back into space coming from time, there's something about the loop that allows us to remember space. So that's one reason why sampling will become interesting for facilitators to work with. When you create a sample, you can use it in many different platforms on your phone and in your laptop. So there are many samplers out there. I'm going to go primarily into Ableton because it's what I've been studying for the last weeks. Logic Pro has its own sampler. I have a really hard time with it, so I'm not gonna go into that too deeply. But I thought what would be interesting for us to do is to go into the library of inner dance music in order um, to go into a sampling workshop. Okay, sorry, I'm not sure if I'm ready to do that. Let me still go into this idea of the library. Um, depending on the platforms that you choose, the libraries are many and potentially vast. So let's see, let me go into my phone. Oh, it's not working. Right. I wanted to use my phone as a camera. Oh, I'm sorry. Hmm. Okay, just a moment. There's a question that came up. Um, highly, yeah. Go ahead.
Hey, I just wanted to ask a quick question. I have a feeling I think I have a feeling I know the answer, but I just want to ask it because um so as you know, I've just started in Ableton, but how I've been working in the past, and I have a feeling that I'm going to have to change, which is okay. It's just going to take a lot of time, but the way that I've been working so far is I have a library in iTunes, and my library is pretty organized. It's in iTunes, and I've been working with DJ Pro. So that speaks to DJ Pro because all my playlists in iTunes then are in DJ Pro. The only problem with that method is that I don't have folders on my computer like you do, which I used to, and I have music on my other computer that I sometimes bring in, but I'm just wondering, for me going forward and working in Ableton, am I going to have problems if I am using all my organizing in iTunes versus, yeah, I'm just wondering about that.
Yeah, the iTunes organizing method was really useful because you can mirror that on the iPhone and the iPad. The iPad being the one of the most used platforms hardware wise in the past. So I did my organization in iTunes in my old system, which would talk about just the one laptop that I had from 2012 to 2018. And when I got a new computer, I couldn't work with iTunes because I was working with different platforms. So to give a direct answer, it doesn't work to use an iTunes library. It
Okay.
is a chance for you to reboot because when you are going to be working with your iTunes library, even though you know where everything is, it does help to restart when you're going into like a different system, which for now is Ableton.
Okay. All right.
Mm.
Thank you.
Yeah. DJ Pro is a totally different animal or organism as a digital audio workstation, like a studio, as opposed to like a DJ booth. Um, so yeah, you will have to organize things in your laptop for sure.
My summer holiday
Um,
mission. Thank you.
mm. Like one particular thought I had in mind when I was speaking earlier is, for example, when um, Lisa asked me for assistance where Josh was concerned, I was incredibly busy at the time. And like I literally was able to work on the I forget how long it was, 2 hours and a half I was able to create a 2.5 hour playlist in, like, probably it wasn't 15, but maybe 20 minutes, which is insane. Like, how do you create a 2.5 hour playlist in 20 minutes? Obviously, I didn't review the thing. I just did the layers. I put them all together. I owe it to the library. The library is space and time, meaning I really put a lot of time in downloading the things that I felt would be useful for the playlists that I was creating for online energy school and innerintensive in the last years. I wasn't thinking about other projects beyond the playlists that I created, that's now called like Falling Sky and See Sound and Compression and so on and so forth. So I did it because I had projects back then. It's really important that you have projects right now so that you can have an opportunity to organize your system. So depending on the project that you set up for yourself, that would determine the sort of library that you would use. So if you are on multiple platforms, you will need to organize them in your computer. And then you would need to mirror that onto the things that you would really be using hardware wise. So if you're on your phone, if you're using your tablet, you would need to mirror those folders. The reason why you can't just work with your phone unless you're on Spotify is that you can't download things on your phone normally. There are ways to organize systems and folders inside the phone, but you normally cannot download things in a way that you can like alter or warp once you move that into the things that you're gonna be studying. So yeah, I think that was important. The thing about Josh and Lisa, when you know your system really well, it becomes really intuitive at one point. So if you know it works and you know where to find things, the discipline will pay off. You know, you will know this maybe months from now or years from now, but definitely not days. It takes a while to organize your system and to train yourself how to use it. So see if this camera works. So at least this camera works. Could use this. I wanted to show my Korg mini log. So this is a synthesizer that I use and I love it. Wait, oh, sorry, I'm not sharing my screen. Now I'm sharing my screen. Okay, so no, wait. No, not that. That was right, yeah. So try to understand that when I talk about the libraries in my laptop, these are sounds. Okay, these are sounds that are coming from songs that have been organized by other people mostly. And when I look at this, it's basically the same concept because this still makes like sounds. When I play that, okay, I'm assuming you can hear the sounds. Could you guys give me a thumbs up if that's a yes? Okay, thank you, Una. So that could look interesting. It holds some complexity because when you look at this button over here, I can shop around for different sounds. So if I press that button, Okay, now I want to convey to you that this didn't just come as it does. If I was to go into my screen, I had to organize like a lot of that in my sound library for Cork, where you don't need to get overwhelmed. Is I did download these hacks. Some of them came already with the machine, but I wasn't really happy with just what it came with. So I had to download certain things that I could input into here. And after I think 198, it starts to become the spiritual sounding elements that are for me useful in inner dance type playlisting. And as you have seen in the past Zoom call, I can connect this to the computer and it can coordinate with all the other programs. So when I move this button, what you can see is these lights change. So library wise, there are what's called presets. So if I press the play button, I can move from like one preset to the next. I don't even need to press these keys. They're just playing on their own.
It's not sounding through, at least
Oh.
for my.
Oh,
It seems
sorry.
that it mutes or something.
Oh, when I'm speaking,
We hear you
this
speak,
is
but
sounding.
yeah.
Okay, so well, I thought you put your hands up. There's nothing
Yeah,
there.
there's always a
Okay,
sound
so
in the
then,
beginning and then it goes away.
so when I
Don't know how it
press.
is for the other.
Okay. Oh.
Okay, it's random.
Oh,
This was heard, so I don't.
that was heard. Okay. Did those come out? Those did. Okay, so it has something to do with me speaking at the same time. Okay, so I guess you get my point in relation to that part, that when I talk about library, I'm speaking from a lot of components, all of which took me a while to come into, years actually. So if I was to share my screen, for example, when I open what's called a VST or a virtual synth technology, like Animoog. This is free, by the way, you can download it. When I open this, this is my library, but I can't remove things that I can't use. So the things I normally use are ranked here, but with the stars, these are the things I consider favorites. I think it's more with Vital that this becomes more clear, because I do have a way to remove the things that I don't need. So library wise, I've taken like days or even weeks to determine what is it on this one particular program that I could use that is important. Let me see if this would play. Yeah, so when you for you not to get overwhelmed when you do take on a specific tool, you always have to start with making choices and what is useful within an energy process construct. So then you could clean up even the folders that exist within each of these programs. Okay, so let's go into Ableton. And some of you are Ableton users already, so I'm sure clean this up. No, I don't need to save the changes. Okay, wait. So I'm trying to look for the screen. I can't find it. There you go. Okay, so this is Ableton. Welcome to Ableton for those who are new to it. And specifically, there are 2 sampling devices within this program. So what we're going to be looking into today would be this in particular. It's called Simpler. It comes with all of the versions of Ableton. So that's good news. Sampler is something you have to pay for. So this is a powerhouse of a tool. So when you come into Ableton, this could become one of the things that you would use the most if you were using other music. Okay, so let me just organize these a little bit. The Logic's trying to compete, and my screen's messy because the Zoom pop-up just won't go away. Go ahead. Hello. Okay. I don't know what happened. Sorry. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is open several things at the same time. So, okay, I opened the Simpler window here, and all I have to do if I wanted to sample is open the folder that could hold these innerdance songs that a lot of you are actually familiar with. So let me go shopping. Let's do this live, like on the spot. What do you guys think? Let's work with something more lively, like Indu is one of the most used inner dance tracks in the history of anything inner dance. So for me to trigger this, I need to press a button on my MIDI controller. Okay, so it doesn't sound right. I need to change the speed. Okay, and I'm also triggering this synth. Okay, wait, I think this isn't working. This is an altered track. I need to open another simpler. Something slower. So back to playlisting, innerdance music. Mm, what about Saturn return? All right. So let it load. I think it's because I'm triggering this. So let me just delete that for now. What is that? Um, I'm sorry. Um, oh, okay. Maybe it's logic. Okay, so I had two programs on at the same time. Okay, so Simpler has three basic options um, that are interesting. So when you look at this part here, it says classic, one shot, and slice. So when I go into slice, for example, this is interesting because of the way in which I can slice up the different elements within the uh, the playlist that may or may not be useful. So, okay, when I toggle these, basically, like just this part here, for example, and I press different buttons in my MIDI controller. I can divide these sounds into different elements. Okay, so this is me pressing a button, or this is me pressing a button. Let me show you what the MIDI controller looks like. So when I press a button, these are just sliced transients in the whole playlist. And basically, these are subdivisions of the song that are more interesting. They're subdivided like already. So I don't need to go through the whole song. I, I I just need to look for different elements that are useful. So the elements are too quick, so I need to adjust the sensitivity to something lower so I could find longer ones. So what this does is it helps me to find the starting point of a particular sample. So that doesn't sound like a start. That doesn't sound like a start. That sounds like a starting point. So what I'm gonna do is find it. I need to find that part. Okay, that's the part that I need. starts there. Okay, so I'm gonna change the mode from slicing to classic. So it stops splicing it. So anything that I press now would start on that part. Okay, and I'm just gonna make sure that that starts looping. You don't need this MIDI controller to make this work. I'm just using it to make life easier for me at the moment. Something Ableton does that's amazing is it has a warping option so that, okay, if I press this button, it's playing the sample on a particular key or tonality. But if I move to another button, it's playing the thing in a lower range. Okay, so I already pressed the loop option. So if I just keep pressing it, it's going to loop it now. I realized you're not actually looking at the controller. So this is what it looks like. That's me pressing the different buttons. And this is the loop range, basically. So I have the ability to move the range using these knobs. I can zoom out so I could see the whole track, and then I can zoom in to find the thing that I need the most within this particular song. So let's say I'm deciding, okay, I need to make adjustments. I need to find like an endpoint so that it would loop harmoniously. Okay, so it doesn't sound good. So I need to make adjustments here, and I'm having to do it with just one hand, with the other one holding the microphone. Okay, so if I was just going to use my eyes, it doesn't work. Here's basic music theory. You need to start counting. So when I press this button, I can determine what are the fixed lengths. So wait, I just need to borrow this hand and press 4 bars. I need you to help me to count the beats or the measure or the bars so that we can determine what makes it loopy. All right. So I'm going to press it again. You can feel it's off. So the only way you can feel for where it begins to loop is to count inside your head when there is a definitive starting and ending point. Okay, so let's make that longer. And inside your mind, I'd like you to start like counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 4 bars. Let's go check if it does actually loop. Okay, so it's not quite there. It's very visual, so you can at least see where the spikes are. And sometimes when you begin right before a spike, that means either you end right before one, or I don't know, you just really have to listen to it. Let's count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, almost there. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3, 4, 1, 2. Okay, so that's looping. Okay, so if you're saying you're happy with that, then you could basically move back to Ableton and just record it. Get back to the I'm gonna press the play button as soon as so now it's recording. It's the blue line at the bottom. And I'm still counting in my head. I need to reach 4 bars. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually more like 4 measures. Okay, so this is just way too long for us. Let's maybe see if this is okay, so it didn't work out. Sometimes that means you need to do it again. Let me repeat it. I don't feel confident. Wait. It's not gonna play it because I didn't play it at the right timing. Okay, so for the sake of just doing this. Let's just work with that. Let me see if I can make some adjustments to make it a little bit more in sync. Okay, so for the sake of time, normally we could still refine that. Right now, let's just stay with that. So what I want to demonstrate to you, okay, now that you have your loop, you know, which could be useful for DJ Pro, which could be useful for Ableton, for Logic. So you could do several things with this. All right, so playing it as it is already does quite a lot, with the thought that this particular sound has done quite a bit for so many inner dance processes historically. So one instance that I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna press reverse on my controller and then press play. So what you did was you took something inner dancey and you took something familiar as well, and you basically shifted that into a whole different mode. Um, so there are other things that you can do within Ableton that changes the sound. So normally I work a lot with specific elements. So let me see if I just keep dragging some different effects here. That would take the sound and make it a little bit different. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna press certain buttons so that you can notice the difference. So that's the sound on its own. Okay, so that's one track in particular. Maybe let's do another one, just since we're here already. Okay. Let's look for another track. One particular favorite that I've used over the years, and it may not be so familiar with some people, because it's something I put in like a, you know, like at the latter years of holding space is this thing called sunlight. So let's open another simpler device here. So we could sample this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this track called sunlight here. Okay, so once again, let's go shopping. Let's move things over back to the camera. Okay, so Simpler already loaded the track here. It's called Sunlight. So here's the entire track, and it's way too long. So let's say I needed to go into a project and I wanted to quickly find a sample. I would move into slicing mode. I demonstrated that to you on the screen itself. I can do that with the controller. And when I adjust the sensitivity, this is when the possible splices start to appear. So let's say I was time pressured. I would shop around for different sounds. I'm looking for starting points. Okay, that for me sounds like a starting point. So let's hone in on where that is. Let's expand the track. So it's right there. And normally the button that triggers that is lit up on the controller. It's that one. Okay, so let's start to trim this. So again, I think what we're trying to do is to look for a loop. Okay, so I need to move from slicing mode to classic so that the note doesn't end on a particular transient. So once again, if I press any note within the whole board, it would press the same clip, just depending on where I'm pressing, it would be different notes. This would be high, this would be low, and normally this is middle C. This is the one in the middle. So you have to help me once again to count. Try to listen to the metronome inside your head. Can you hear it? Let's go for 4 bars again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Once again. So I'm choosing this track because it's really non-linear. It's very hard to hear the metronome within this one. So just keep practicing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again. Right there. Once again. Okay, so let's turn on the loop button. Let's see if it loops. It doesn't. So you can see the way it starts. It needs to be right before the hit. So let's extend the end just a bit more. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, just a little bit. It's a bit long. Okay, that's as happy as it would get within this demo space we have going. Gonna load that into the program. There's a marker on my controller that lets me know when it's gonna start. So I'm waiting for it before I press. Okay, so I don't even know how long that is. Let me just loop it on the fly. Okay, maybe just as short as that. That's all we need. Let's test it. Okay, so you have a loop. And once again, let's go into possible effects that we could just drag. So you need to double click the track to open once again the simple looper. And let's just shop around without even knowing what most of these do. If you had time, then yeah, you could actually determine what would work. Okay, so I think that actually destroys the sound altogether. Right. It's this one. Okay. Yeah, that's too much. That just is weird. What I'm gonna do again is press the reverse button on this. So give it a second before it makes the adjustment. So going back to Saturn return, doing the same. No, I think this is actually pretty good already as a conversation. So yeah, I just really just want to present ideas, like musical ideas, vibrational ideas, work ideas, um, to to just like show how you can actually like reduce or simplify something that sounds more complex, that is like a song, and then you can bring complexity out of that simple part that is almost like a choice for you. um it almost brings about like a critical thinking process to the spiritual mind to help you to observe what is it in what I am using that holds the key, holds the structure, holds the vibration. And then taking that, how could you make that yours? How could you do things with it that is according to your like intuition, not just to take it as it is, but in time, like what would you do with it, you know? So in terms of librarification or building a vocabulary, you're not just taking a word, you're not just taking a sentence and totally parroting or echoing the thing exactly as it was spoken. How can you generate new meanings out of the same like word? So you can create a sample, you can store that sample, you can keep using that sample in however many ways you might find like interesting. And what I really like about this possibility is like I can make samples and I could send you these samples, and you don't need Ableton. You can load these samples onto a like DJ Pro. And something I did is I made a sample today and I put it into Launchpad, which is a really simple app on my phone. I realized that I can arrange these samples onto a Launchpad screen. So I could just press the button and it would play the sample. And we literally, this could be taught. This could be set up in your own system. So even if you're not the one making a specific bit that's useful, and say someone made it, this could be like shared. So I'm just demonstrating this in Ableton. This is just one of the many possible platforms you could use. There are samplers that you can just upload from App Store onto your phone. It's really up to you and all of us to see where we could take these. So I'm open to questions, to thoughts. I haven't opened the chat box just to see what you guys are thinking. And this is happening within a Stoudious Mundos space. So for those who are coming from Intensive, this is more or less a group that's been working with playlisting, mostly using Logic Pro in the past. So this is just us going forward with many of the basic elements that we started with before. I'm going to press the mute button, and if you have just any question or comment, you could bring it up here. Thank you.
Hey guys, can you hear?
Yes, Una.
Okay. So maybe I will start because I had so many questions in the beginning of this, or like a few questions for sure. And now I feel something has been bridged somehow. So I might just reflect a bit on where I'm at the moment with both holding space, because I had like a huge like moment of doubt, or let's say I really questioned after one phase. I was like, there is something that I know that could be mediated in the space that I'm not allowing through or something. And the way I have been using music in the sessions so far is a playlist and an external JBL that can sort of travel around the space. But the playlist holds the structure, like holds basically. And the playlist has always been so far in my sessions something pre-made. So I realized that because I've experienced not so many times, but let's say 3 or 4 times, really, really purely and really like a session that was held with more, let's say, cleaner vibrations, like less songs, less melodies, and more sound and frequencies just conveyed without without being composed into a music track or a song. And yeah, just from my experience, I know that there's something there. And like I couldn't verbalize it in the summer when I had experienced like more as sort of the earth's vibrations speaking directly rather than or like, yeah, without comparing too much. It just felt more direct, and in that sense, not so much speaking to the addictive tendencies of the brain. So this is something I realized when I held the last session. I said I had to question myself, like, who am I doing this for? And like, am I doing this for someone? And is like, what is it? And so after going into a little bit of research on an instrument that I have now, which is a synth, I'm a bit overwhelmed because it makes these many electronic sounds that are not always so pleasant and are quite like noisy. And I wondered, really had the question, like how to bridge from a playlist that has library and song and into a playlist that is somehow conveyed just with the vibration, and like how to even start, like which tools and how complex and how many gadgets and like how complex does it have to be. And yeah, so my I feel like this way of sampling into, like, now I have an iPad. I don't even have my birthday yet, but I bought myself a birthday present as for this, to like use apps that I can that I've gotten to know tiny bits, which is Launchpad and Audio, Blocks Waves, which I think is the app you can actually that you can actually download this sounds and samples on, because what Launchpad holds on its own was just too commercial, somehow strange. Like I don't want to be a party DJ. I want to, use vibrations, but also like being quite new in facilitating the space. And there isn't, let's say that in Iceland, there isn't necessarily a full crowd that knows so well the music. So I could still be holding sessions with like old playlists and the old school playlists, and it would be new for people. But when I'm doing that, it doesn't still, somehow take through what I know the space can hold. And whole process, I have also questioned the touch and a little bit like, what are we, like what necessary, like is maybe the touch something that, I don't know, can the music maybe touch people, and is it going to actually also emphasize this dopaminergic reactions in people's bodies and brains when they have the touch, because so often in the reflection people say, I really liked it when you touched. It seems always something that people crave for somehow. And so yeah, my reflection is now like, have I been even bringing my own sort of preferences into the room, and maybe been not listening to what is in a way quite scary? It's a bit overwhelming to imagine holding a space with so many unknown tools, but at the same time I'm almost sensing that there's no other option almost. So yeah, I just think that the sampling thing could actually help with bridging from a full-blown track which holds a structure. And yeah, also when Fanny was she was sharing, and when she went into sharing about language and how it structures time, and how one sound after the other holds, puts together the word, puts together the sentence, you have a language. It's the same thing. This linearity will always continue. And yeah, and I think with the new devices and the sort of new ways, I feel like the linearity disappears, but still somehow space is structured, but it doesn't hold the linearity. So yeah, I think I'll leave it for that. But this is a great bridge, and I feel quite, somehow I feel like I know what's my next step in putting together all my things. So great. Thank you, Pi. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, this is really supportive of what's happening energetically in all of these sessions. I went deeper into these because I saw the limitations. I've seen them since the beginning. When I was using songs, I could see the limitations. It's like there's more here, and sometimes even when it seems like a lot is happening, people are screaming, people are shouting, they're crying, they're laughing, their bodies are moving. Inside me, I had this intuition. There's so much happening, but there's not actually anything happening because there's just too much happening. So I was craving for certain elements that would allow certain things to start happening, even though it would seem to the eye that less is happening. Let me go to my phone. Share. Let me see if my phone comes up. Make sure the sound is shared. Some of these need to be demonstrated somehow. So when I open these, all of these are in a way like libraries, right? So you mentioned Launchpad. When you do open this up initially, there are a lot of DJ sounding things that aren't so usable in innerdance. It's too clubby, like these house music type things. I actually haven't played with this in a while. Let me try to put one up. Okay, so when I play that, it doesn't seem so usable. so a lot of it has to do with tempo or rhythm, like the speed, that allows it to be either addictive, familiar, or something that transcends what's normally in the human range of experience. So what we're studying this is like time and space. Like this determines time. Stress reset. So let's make this go beyond. When you bring it back to that original BPM, it does sound songy, but in contrast between what was taking place in the slow and the fast, it suddenly becomes a little bit more like useful. So I know what you mean, Una. I've been there, and when you're holding a device, what you're holding is power in many ways. These have a way of affecting people, manipulating them even. I wanted to bring up the Launchpad because when you look at the Launchpad platform, what you're looking at are samples, they're loops. And one of the reasons why that would always be something we would look at is it holds circularities in time, in like cycles and circles, things can go round and round, so that even though you have some of the basic elements that would normally comprise a song, which means there's percussions, there's melodies, there's harmonic instruments, because you can speed it up and you can slow it down, and then you have these loop options, even within the actual loop, where you can shift like a whole tone into 1/16 or 1/32 of what that song used to be. And if you know how to use that well, something happens to time perception in the body. It's like you just do need to know the right timing in which these become like useful. So the chord synth that you have. It has very specific things that it could do in relation to waveforms. And that's something I was demonstrating in Iceland when I was there. I guess we're set up enough for us to just demo that. Because you brought up something specific. So let's see, you remember what I would do when we were there. I would put it into initial program, and I would hold a note, right? Okay, so now I need to find a way to free up both my hands. Okay, hope this stays. I would play a note, and then I would change the shape of that note. So yeah, I'm just creating examples that are similar. When I work with the Launchpad app, when I speed up a song, and when I would put these mini loop parameters within the larger loop, it's exactly what I demonstrated in the synth, where you can increase the waveform quality in what used to be recognizable, musical, harmonic, pleasing sound, things that feed people's wants, desires, needs, addictions. When you know how to access the weirder frequencies that are happening in REM state, whether it be slow wave sleep that happens beneath the higher frequencies in REM, or like the highest oscillating frequencies that happens when people go into dream or like spiritual awakenings. Like these are going to be really useful, like in the long term. We do want to use these with responsibility because they really are pretty powerful, and power can alter experience and brain states like hugely. So when you bring in a lot of these really high frequencies, you normally need to balance it with the super low frequencies. So library wise, I think there could just be so many dimensions. I tend to use these synthesizers because I need to use the waveforms, but I'm also using like samples, actual music, because they hold memories, they hold emotions, they hold perceptions, and I'm interested in unlocking those perceptions, emotions, those movements that happen, so that we could go into much deeper ones if we knew how to rearrange or like warp, morph, or transform the sounds that have been quite important in bringing us into this point. I think to really get to the bottom of what we're talking through here, one needs to understand the history of sound and even music unto itself has a really long history. The history of music has accompanied us along with the history of thought and language itself. Music came up alongside the origins of language and thought process. Music has held a part in organizing our awareness, so that when we see now these different emerging traditions changing music as we witness it, like the whole industry of music, the whole experience of music, which means the whole conceptualization of music is changing, even as we are reconceptualizing what we understand about the body, the brain, the mind, spirit, and so on and so forth. So this really just requires like time and discipline. And when you take on any particular hardware, software, these are all extensions of us. They hold abstract layers that are not analog. They're digital, which means they're packing in so much more information that we were used to 10 or 20 years ago. We're all in it together, I think, this exploration. Thank you, Una. Anyone else have things?
Hi, Pi. Here's Oscar. Hi, friends. Well, I find very inspirational this calling. It was very profound. Especially, I want to share a few things. Especially because what I understood with these tools and these possibilities that is there with these applications, digital or analog, it makes me remember how to return to these basic goals that our ancestors they did with the being able to go to the trance state, repeating, and being able to create a physical and internal dance. Actually, I see them kind of in the primitive inner dance potential processes when they were in this trance, dancing for 2-3 nights, going in an altered state of consciousness, repeating a loop and having this loop in there and having these huge processes. I found very inspirational. I'm very grateful to see how it's expanding the possibilities. It can be overwhelming for all of us, I include myself, but at the same time, yes, it's very similar to when you start to understand scales, chords, and everything, all this stuff. We just need to hold the breath and using slowly what feels intuitively good and feels so good with us, and going step by step without rushing, but with this open mind and open heart to try new things. I feel like this is like an ensemble or a jamming when we need to be able to listen what is happening in order to know where is a space for putting things. It's not just from thinking. We need to listen what is happening, and when this is happening, this intelligence exchange between listening, feeling, thinking, and knowing. And yes, I was opening my Ableton here, and you mentioned in some text that all these analog things that you have, all these machines, we can have it digital. Okay, that's right. Yeah, we can download them and we can use this digitally, not necessarily buying the machine. This is my question. And thank you so much. Really, thank you.
Yeah. So back to shared screen. Okay, I closed the Ableton just to clean up my screen, but I want to yeah, look at that question around is there a need for these machines if you can have them all on Ableton anyway? So I brought up the Animu as a synthesizer. Let me play around with that a little bit. Let's choose some interesting sound. So I need to press the hold button. It made just an ARP. Okay, so that's Animu. And when I open Ableton, I would need to go to plugins and I would open this. So it's right there. Animu is right there. So if I just drag and drop it here, then I can open it. Now it's inside Ableton. So anything let's say, let me hold button here. When you watch this, it's coming in. So it's so I demonstrated Vital. These are free, by the way. You don't need to pay for these. Same thing, I can put Vital inside. These are called plugins. So now I can choose from the different presets, and I can play with Vital. Weird. And that as well goes straight into Ableton. So Ableton, in a way, is really just a component that organizes many components. If you see what I mean, the possibilities of Vital and Animu independently is actually a lot more than what my Korg mini log can do. So there's no need to complicate one's life. I am a very multi-layered person, so there's something inside me that likes many things happening at the same time because my mind is able to operate in that way. So I do like having digital and analog all in one space because I like range. I like the big range. But anyway, going back into sampling. Sampling has a history. When human beings, musicians especially, realize that they can take something that was created by someone else. It could be something from Mozart, from the Backstreet Boys, to Marvin Gaye, to I'm not even talking about the field recordings from the forest. I'm talking about musical culture, sound that held the context of either a small or a massive group of people that holds like historicity, that holds memory. So sampling was an art that started to came up when we discovered electronic possibility. And then when we learned how to mash up some of these existing sounds that belong to the culture when musicians realize that I can take something that's by Stevie Wonder or Madonna and I can actually make it my own. It trained the ear to start listening to the layers, to start to shop around for the nuances, the things that we normally didn't notice. They were just there. We became more sensitive, and there's something about the mind that likes puzzles. It could be a child or it could be an old person. I think when we're children, we were appreciative of puzzles a lot more because we had this curiosity and how do the pieces fit together into a large whole. I think when people grow old too fast, they lose the mind that can deal with puzzles. When we become too serious, when we're not interested in the relationality between the whole and the many parts, that's when we lose the child mind or childlike state. So when we become interested in the pieces, sonically, musically, vibrationally, it belongs to a capacity of our brain that is in development in the inner dance or in the energy awakening, because music in a way holds a really important like bridge work between both hemispheres and between all the brain regions. That's why the brains of musicians are very, very different from those who don't have music like in their lives. Those who listen to music, those who create music are wired differently. So the question is, what would happen if someone had a spiritual process and their brains were starting to go into these interconnections, these hyper connections. When we start to organize our vibrations, then we're we're retaining this unlimited nature that we have during the spiritual experience, and we can bring that into life. I mean, especially for those who are conducting the kind of work that we're doing. So I think sampling is really interesting in the history of music itself, and sampling becomes interesting for us in terms of like time perception, like time loops. So a lot of people are still using songs, and we've reflected a lot on what songs do in terms of bringing people into the wave, which can be very emotional, very personal, very biographical, very much related to returning to the trauma, returning to the same emotion. In a way, that's actually loopy. When we learn to break away from that, and there are many tools, using noise, using vibrations. I think loops and samples provide some kind of bridge way from time to space to take still like music. We don't get rid of music. Music is part of humanity. But what is this next dimensionality that we enter into? So I do see music is changing right in front of us, and spiritual people are having to learn their own music, because just like language holds a structure of consciousness, so do we understand music actually helps to deconstruct and then to restructure consciousness. whether it be in a 1 hour session or like what happens outside. So organizing one space is really important when we look at all these insights all together. Okay, so thank you, Oscar. Anyone else would like to make some sounds too? Could be questions on like starting points, these platforms and whatnot. I'm also reading through the chat box anyway. Tom, yeah, I'm controlling everything from the push, meaning I don't even need to look at Ableton once if I'm on push. The only time I would go into my computer is when I need to drag a file from the laptop that's outside of Ableton into push. So push almost acts as standalone. So Aranza, I think your question was answered. Yeah, so yeah, does anyone have any other questions or things? Otherwise, you can just call it a night. Una.
Maybe just on that, when you drag from Ableton to the sampler, can you do that through another program than Ableton? Like any music workshop, or what was it? Music
App.
Program app. Yeah.
Yeah. It could be actually really simple, Una, because you've been working. What were you working with, GarageBand or Logic?
I don't have Logic. I use Mixpad for the 2 playlists I've made.
Okay, so you can literally just drag into whatever program you're using, and you can splice it from there, right?
So GarageBand,
And then,
I have that now. Yeah, and also
yeah.
that or.
So you can splice using whatever. You can take a track into GarageBand. You can look for the starting point and the end point. You can cut it up. You can save it as an MP3 or a WAV file, depending on what would be useful to you. And then you can upload that into, say, Caro's using DJ Pro a lot, and she's loading up the samples section of DJ Pro. So she just needs to press a button and then something would play. So samples are interesting in Ableton because you can launch things into like clips. Okay, so let's see. Let me share the screen again. Live is interesting because of these like clips. This is a clip, for example. This is not a clip, this is an instrument. It just makes a sound, so I can control the volume here. This is a shepherd tone, a tone that's simultaneously going up and down at the same time. And yeah, these are the 2 synths that I demonstrated. We try to play a clip. This is a clip. So it's a sample, it's a loop, it plays over and over again. Okay, so what you're seeing here is called the live view. And if I press tab on my computer, then what you have is the arrangement view. So if you wanted to make a playlist and to make something out of all these sounds, what you would do is press the record button, and any sound that that is playing, like this, for example, this audio is playing. I think Shepherd Tone is not playing. Anything that has volume coming in would start to enter this field. So press stop. So in the live view, you can organize these clips that would just keep playing over and over again. So if you have your laptop up and open during the session, if you have a controller, it doesn't have to be the Ableton Push. If you have a controller, you could just organize these clips to be playing at the same time. And they would be coordinated by the clock. You can slow them down, you can speed them up. Yeah, so where I am right now, I'm using Ableton because I have many components that need to be organized because I'm doing things within like an online space. And that's something I couldn't do in Logic or just the apps alone. So then you might realize why I'm actually using this as opposed to some of the other things I used to use. I think if I traveled next year, I won't use Ableton. I'd probably just use my phone so I could focus. But by then I probably would have recorded quite a few new things that I would upload and even play as samples. I think Tom wrote something. Yeah, you can download direct from My Noise. It costs around $1 for 5 minutes. You know what I do, Tom? And this is an interesting question some people have. Christina asked me the question yesterday. I can't demonstrate it right now, but let's say I wanted to record my noise. What I need to do is to take the output signal from my phone into the mixer. It could be through the audio interface or the mixer. And then the computer would translate the analog to digital so that I could just make it like a separate track within Ableton. That's what I used for my last playlist project. Yeah.
For the My Noise thing, if you go to the site directly, you can like load up your account and then you can download like 5-minute samples so you can play around with. This is what I've been doing in Arrangement View in Ableton, just downloading these 5-minute samples, and you can kind of structure it how you want as you download it. So however, or put it on a kind of a random setting, and then you get like a 5-minute chunk of an MP3 that you can stick into Ableton. That's how I found it.
So you're saying it acts as a sample unto itself already. Yeah.
You can download anything from My Noise as a sample that you can then just drop into Ableton, which is quite cool.
Okay, yeah, that's a good idea because there are a lot of good things there. And the thing with My Noise is you cannot usually link the tempo if there's a rhythm happening in the noise and you want to coordinate that with the music. I probably wouldn't do that as much because each of my apps already has such a big library, so that sticking the phone or the iPad into the mixer is maybe easier to organize because already Ableton holds so many samples. So if I just kept adding samples there, it becomes overwhelming, like at a certain point. So, but it's a good concept, an idea what you're talking about, and I think that's going to be quite interesting for a lot of people. That question is one of the most often asked, actually. How can people record the my noise sounds? Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Then we can start to close. We started at 2 o'clock here. It's 4:23. Hmm. Yeah, I think it's good. Okay, so maybe I can just integrate. I'm happy to have had this call because we have been kind of going around in circles around really general topics. And it's quite rare to go into a specific application. So today we went not just into a program, but like a component within the program. So as I know, a lot of you are beginning to go into things like Ableton, at least to see certain things that you can do with it. There's so much that you can do with these programs. Just to look at one basic component, I think is a good starting point. So to sum up, we went into simpler as just one possible tool. It's like a sampling tool. Actually, Ableton has two sampling tools. One is called Sampler, and that one does more complex things. I haven't even started to use that. I'm pretty happy with Simpler. So that even if you have the really basic versions of Ableton, if let's say you bought a MIDI controller and that MIDI controller comes with Ableton, I think it's called Ableton Lite, it comes with Simpler. So even if you were using Ableton just for Simpler, for the sampling tool called Simpler, it already can do quite a lot for you, because in comparison, the sampling capacities of a lot of the other things I've looked at, they're not as good. If let's say you didn't have so much time, you're not a music producer, you're not a musician per se, but you do want to find ways to more quickly look for what you need, and say you feel called to a specific track. It's like, oh, okay, this song is really interesting. But then where I'm urging you is like, why? What? How? It becomes more interesting to realize, okay, there's like a part in that somehow. Like one of the songs in my own library is I think it White Man's Burden. Let me show it to you. Or let's go listen to it together. Playlisting and dance music. It's a really cool track. It starts out like this. I'm just gonna keep jumping. So a lot of you probably know this.
We can't hear the song.
Oh.
No. Okay, now we could.
Oh, so I need to stop talking. I'm just gonna keep jumping throughout certain sections of the song. you can see why this would work. It's because of that really slow, amazing, tremendous build up. You know, I wish to honor that. Like I used it so many times, and you know, um, but the song is more than 8 minutes long. So in retrospect, if I was me now, not then, and I was to look at the same elements to arrive at the 4 minute mark where things really started to come together, I would probably just extract 2 or 3 elements from that song, and I would put it somewhere so that if I needed it, I would get to it. So I can't describe to you how many times I would press play button on that song based on old technology where we couldn't press forward. There were no DJ apps when I started to use that. I would be right there. I would be holding bodies and I would be waiting. And I knew that some people were actually already quite ahead because they may have heard the song so many times and already so much is happening even as soon as they lay down that I I honor the whole thing, but what I really need would be just 3 or 4 things from the whole 8 minutes. I would extract maybe 30, 40 seconds worth of what for me is what makes it like particularly interesting. So I have many things like that in my library. And when you start to construct a journey for people, what you have is 60 minutes. And how much of the universe can fit into 60 minutes? If you have been doing this for years already, you would know what I'm talking about. Like a lot happens in an hour. You yourself would go into a trance state, and you yourself would be going into the historicity and the geography of the earth, and you would be flying, floating, swimming, running through all these sections of the universe. So you'd start to put these layers together, the whole history of the earth in 60 minutes. But what I'm describing to you is in the past, I have maybe 6 things, 7 things. Because if you average it out, if a song is 5 to 8 minutes, how many can fit into like 60? You'd be lucky at like 10. And these are just things that musicians created, not for an inner dance ecosystem, not an inner dance environment, but for you to take something that belongs to like a club or a cafe or in a party, or you actually need to reconstruct some of these so that the layers of the earth would become more synonymous vibrationally or sonically, based on the new art form, the new experiences coming up across the world right now. So yeah, these tools be interesting. And if you have any questions, we can just bring those discussions to the group spaces. And these spaces are designed to help you enter into these gently, not entirely from this digital, everything's happening all at once, method, but you can take things one at a time. It's the new discipline. If you're used to splattering into simultaneous, synchronic, everything happening all at once, it is also a discipline to learn how to do things in sequence, one at a time. So, like for me, I actually wake up in the morning and I have my questions clear. In the Philippine tribes, the question holds space. When there's like a sacred gathering, the tribes know what question is being held right now that holds the space. And they have an awareness of when the question is moved into another question. And then a lot of the rituals, the songs, the the dialogues that would happen would be according to the new vibration held by the new question. So when you learn to go into sequence once again, not parallel processing, but serial processing, when you once again access the left brain, which is the part of you that helps to organize and to essentialize and to prioritize the questions, the daily questions would help, that are being organized by the large questions, which aren't daily. They're huge questions related to consciousness and evolution and time and space. Then there would be these smaller questions that come up every time you unravel like a part. It would lead you into like another part, and then another part that's being held by a large meta map coordinating all of these parts together. So that's how I've been operating as well. It's like I would wake up and okay, I have a question regarding how to do the sync in out, so that one machine would coordinate the clock according to like another rhythm. And I know that I haven't really settled that question if I haven't tried it. So I need to reach into the part of me that might feel overwhelmed. Okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have the answer to that question. But for me, it's a spiritual exercise to journey into the possibilities. And there's something really, really satisfying upon unraveling what was just being sensed by the question. To arrive at an answer is very organizational and systemic. And because it's a lived experience, there's growth there. The other option would be just to go like, it doesn't mean anything. It's overwhelming. I'm not interested. I'm just going to simplify. But then if this is something you're using anyway, and then there are layers, you either could opt to layers for deeper knowledge, structural understanding, growth, or you could just go into a loop. And we do like crave for progress, so that each day we know our bodies are able to handle more. So you can either just keep doing repetitions of the same thing. Gonna close my eyes and just gonna breathe in and out and go into nothingness. That's really, really beautiful in a way. But to be in the world, to be productive, to be interested, to be curious, to be structural, like in the world, is another aspect of spirituality I think that is happening more and more to a lot. As we know, the universe, the brain, nature, the earth is complex. It's biodiverse. We are neurodiverse. We're linguistically diverse, and we have lost that diversity. We've tried to limit and control the innate diversity that belongs to the cosmos. When we look at these applications and programs, they're really just there to organize in higher abstractions the information that was embedded in the cell, that was embedded in the microbe, the molecule, the atom, that is, for some reason or another, building up to a level of wisdom and intelligence that's in a life review. It's almost like I want to understand what I am, and its ability to arrive at this point of complexity into singularity. This 100% brain that is being activated in some that used to be 3% or 5% or 7%. All these tools are bringing us towards there. So for me, they're not really just tools. They're not just apps. They are, they're mirrors. I'm really interested in them per se because they've been helping me with my day. They've been helping me with my work, with my vibrations. I still live in nature, so take it a step at a time, and whatever you choose, make it yours. If you need support, we have the community to help. We're all learning this together. So thank you very much. Let's keep the conversation alive. You guys are sure you don't have any questions anymore? Last call. Yeah. So I think we'll call it a night. Just unmute and we can just see each other again next time. Thank you, everyone. Good
Thank you.
night.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Morning.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you. Good night.